Hello, this is Miss Macbeth. I'm here to discuss some of the persisting kind of issues that might have come up having to do with your video in week 11. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss is many uses of gustar. I'm seeing that there are issues with gustar that persist. Gustar is a very tricky verb to learn how to use. It's completely irregular, so it doesn't really follow any of the kind of patterns that we've seen so far, so that can be really challenging for a lot of people. I've made a little chart, which I think I have made before, but you can see it here. Gustar has to be used in a certain type of framing, or it just doesn't sound right. So one of the errors that I see people do a lot when thinking about gustar is they'll say things like yo gusta. But if you look on this chart that I've made for you, you see that yo doesn't appear anywhere on the chart, right? So you wouldn't use yo when you're thinking about gustar. You wouldn't use tu gusta, right? That doesn't make any sense. So if you want to say you like, you have to say a ti te gusta, right? If you want to say I like, you have to say a mí me gusta, okay? You have to follow through with all of the information. So if you want to say something like my brothers like, right? I have to say a mis hermanos les gusta. Now you notice on this side, right, I've determined what form of gustar I will use, whether it will be singular or plural, based on whether the items I'm talking about are singular or whether the items I'm talking about are plural. But also there's another category, which is infinitives, right? You'll notice that I'm just going to use gusta, which is the singular form, whenever I'm using also infinitives. This is something that confuses a lot of people, or that has been confusing a lot of people, was how to use conjugated verbs. I think it's because in English, we only have two forms of verb conjugation. We only have present tense and we have past tense. Everything else that we form, we use what we'd like to call auxiliaries, right? Or we sometimes call them modules, right? So or modals, we call them modals. So sometimes that can be a little bit confusing, because in English we might say something like I am going, whereas in Spanish we would just say voy, I go, right? In Spanish you're going to use the present tense 80 to 90% of the time, right? You're not going to use those helping words that we use in English, right? So one of the things that I've heard people say sometimes, right, is es hago, right? But that doesn't make any sense, because you're saying it's make, but you're not saying it's making, which is what you're intending to say. If you want to say it's making, you would just say, if you want to say I'm making, right, which is a lot of what people are trying to say there, you would just say hago. I am making, hago, right? You're just going to use the verb in the actual form. So whenever people were using gustar, they were blending gustar with forms that were not infinitives, right? But remember, if you're going to use gustar and you're going to put something after it, gustar is the conjugated verb. So after gustar, you can only either use singular items, plural items, or an infinitive, right? You're not ever going to have a conjugated verb after gustar. So let me show you what I mean. I made a little example with my color coding here. I don't know if you can see it. So here, right, I've given some examples of how I would conjugate gustar, and I've given some examples based on how I would do them. So here, right, if I want to say I like, right, a mí me, right, that's taking the place of yo, right, a mí me gusta ir al cine, right? I like to go to the movies. Now, you notice that in English, you would say, I like to go to the movies. That to in front of go is the infinitive, in fact. So in English, actually, you would do the exact same thing that you're doing in Spanish. The only difference is we just don't think about it in those terms, right? But here, this to go would be represented by ir, right? So here I have another example. A mis hermanos y yo nos gusta la clase de biología, right? Because you wouldn't say nosotros gusta, right? You would say nos gusta. And then I have a singular item, right? So I'm going to use gusta. In the third example here, I put, a mi hermano le gustan las uvas, because I have a plural item here, right? And I'm talking about him, so I have to use le. This is the part where a lot of people are falling down, right? So they might put some of these elements, or they might put this element, but then they leave out the other elements. And most of you are leaving out this helping word a, which is necessary at the beginning of each of these sentences. So you can't leave out any of the components, right? All of the components have to go together. That's what's the most important. Let's just look at this last example. A mis padres les gusta tomar café. Again, right, I have an infinitive, right? So I've used the singular form, gusta, and I've used all the components. A mis padres les gusta. Okay? So that's something to think about. Here, I just wanted to show you all some of the issues that you've been having with verb conjugation, right? So one of the areas where people are struggling is with not putting two conjugated verbs together. In a sentence, you're only going to have, especially the kind of simple sentences that you're meant to be writing in this class, you're only going to have one conjugated verb per sentence. All the other verbs are going to default into the infinitive. And you would do this in English as well. We just don't think about it quite in those terms, but you would also do this in English. So I've given the examples, right? In English, you might say, I like to go to the movies. Well, this to go is an infinitive. And here you have like, which is the conjugated verb, and there you have the infinitive. So you would say it the same in Spanish, right? Me gusta, gusta being the conjugated verb, ir being the verb in the infinitive, ir al cine, no? And again, right, in English, are making, right, that would be one conjugated verb together. Those all go together, right? Because you wouldn't use making just by itself. You wouldn't say I making. You wouldn't say I going. You wouldn't say I doing. You have to say I am going. I am making. You are making, right? The are is necessary as a component to make the verb sound right. So because of that, even though it looks like it's separate words in English, we would count them all as one conjugation phrase, right? So in Spanish, you could just replace all of these words with one word, okay? So for example, right, I've given this example, you are making good grades, right? So in Spanish, you would just replace the are making with one verb that's in the present. Tú haces buenas notas, okay? And then I've given a third example here. I am going to go to the mall, right? So here, again, I have an infinitive, to go, right? And I have one conjugated verb. Now, this I am going, again, is a verbal phrase, right? So it's all contained within itself. But in Spanish, you would just write one verb that replaces all of that verbal phrasing, right? Yo voy a ir al centro comercial, okay? I hope that helps to make a little bit more sense. I'm going to move to one more quick thing that has to do with pronunciation, which was the other thing that some people, or, that is a struggle for the Dropbox in week 11. Now, in English, we have 14 different vowel sounds, but in Spanish, we only have 5 different types of vowel sounds. See, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now in English, we have 14 different ways of pronouncing these 5 vowels, but in Spanish, there are 5 vowels, and each one has a pure pronunciation, which means that there's only one way to pronounce each vowel. One of the areas where people have fallen down a little bit in pronouncing in pronouncing Spanish is in either leaving off things, which is something that we do in English all the time. For example, whenever we say the word light, right, we have a GHT, but it's completely left off whenever we say it. But in Spanish, you would leave nothing out, right? So for example, here I have a, I, e, aire, aire. See? And here, cine. I follow through all the way to the end of the word, right? Cine. I leave nothing out. Here, no H sound, right? Helado. All of it together. Helado. Here, piscina. Piscina. Here, again, we're going to pronounce everything. Each of these vowels gets an individual pronunciation. tienda, tienda. Each of these vowels gets an individual pronunciation. Leer, leer, leer. Okay? Or here, remember QU always makes a k sound. Parque, parque. But you don't say park, you say parque. See? Let's look at some ones that have vowels together, right? For example, here, joyería, right? We're going to pronounce all of those words. Joyería. Or here, where we have these two vowels together, we're going to say both of those vowels. Lengua, lengua, lengua. Or here, idioma, idioma, right? We are pronouncing each individual part of the phrase. So that's some things to remember whenever we're thinking about moving forward in how to do future pronunciations. And it's also some things to think about as you think about moving your verb conjugation to the next level. As always, I hope you have a great week, and email me if you have any questions.